Welcome to the Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Hello.
Hey.
Guten Tag.
Aloha.
Hola. Shalom.
Hello.
Namaste.
Ni hao.
Privet.
Hello.
Salut. Yassas.
Salve.
Ciao.
Bonjour. Our podcast talks about the latest trends in the worlds of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. First, we have to introduce the star guest of today, and that is the wonderful Rob Levy of Hero, HXRO.io. So, Rob, welcome to Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back. I always love our talks.
I really love this. Now, it's amazing. Now, I don't know the last time you were in France. The French government is going to be auctioning 611 bitcoins that were seized from hackers next week. And there's going to be two sales comprised of 478 lots altogether. This is, I don't know. I really want to know who's going to be sitting in with their paddle. I want to know who is going to be there. But this is the first auction of seized Bitcoin by the French government with a total worth of 34 million US dollars. So, Rob, are you going to go buy your ticket over to Paris, join in this auction?
Well, I wonder what kind of auction it is. Not a Dutch auction, but a French auction. I think those sort of auctions are great, really great opportunities for either high net worth individuals or family offices or institutions to get a really good fill, as we would call it in the professional world. When you get a good fill on a trade, you're happy with it. You get it done at one price, and it's pretty hassle-free. So I think there will be a lot of demand for that because in the end, it's going to get priced pretty much in real time, depending on where the market is. And I know that when the U.S. government did a big auction of Bitcoin several years ago, the trading firm I was at, they were bidding on it. I mean, all the pros were trying to get their hands on that, and they were trying to figure out what price it was going to get done at because there's a sort of arbitrage opportunity between where the market was trading. That $36 million worth, that'll get gobbled up pretty quickly. I'm sure it'll go off without a hitch.
Oh, I'm only too sure. I just really want to be a fly on the wall and know who's bidding. Most of this Bitcoin was seized by the courts in connection to an attack on the crypto platform GateHub.
Yeah.
This was a London-based crypto exchange that was hacked in 2014, and those Bitcoins were seized from the hackers. Now, you see, the court case is still ongoing, and it seems that the accused haven't even been sentenced yet. But if they're found not guilty, they get to keep the proceeds from the sale. You listen to, do you hear that? So basically, if they can't prove that these guys were the hackers, they get to collect 34 million buckaroonies. But let me explain something to you, right? I mean, imagine this. Imagine being a hacker, working for some kind of money laundering gang. And this happens to you, and then you're found that you're cleared. You don't even have to launder your 34 million. The government's going to hand it back to you in a check. I mean,
yeah.
That's not hysterical. But, we have to wait and see. We will do a commentary. I will follow, which I often do. We will follow this case, and we'll find out what happens at the end. What I find very interesting in the news is this piece about Mark Mobius. Now, Mark Mobius is a veteran investor. So Mark Mobius is saying, I fear a decline of Bitcoin price because he feels it's going to drag down the stock market. Now, it's quite interesting because I think you also saw the piece that I did where some other veteran investors were saying to Tesla, what you did in investing that 1.5 billion of the corporate treasury, you shouldn't have done this because it's really impacted the stock price. But now there's this extra layer where you have Mark Mobius coming out saying, hey, this is a direct quote. One of the things I fear is a decline of the Bitcoin price. And he said this live on Bloomberg TV. And he then clarified it even further by saying that the relationship between Bitcoin prices and the tech market is very close. So watch that indicator. I think the Bitcoin prices go down. I think the tech stocks are going to be hit very badly. So what do you think? Do you think that this is a very valid connection to make between the decline in the price of Bitcoin and this knock-on effect now in the stock market? And I do want to also say, he's not saying it will go the other way. He's saying this is a one-way street. He's saying Bitcoin goes down, stock market goes down. He's not saying stock market goes up, Bitcoin goes up.
Oh, I love it so much for so many reasons. This is like a major the tables have turned moment. You know, you listen to what he said, and the thing he fears is the decline of Bitcoin price because he thinks that then the tech market will go down also. I think that's a great compliment to Bitcoin. I mean, the fact that a big, this veteran fund manager, he's been in the markets for years. He is afraid that if Bitcoin goes down, it could drag the stock market down. I mean, think about that for a second. This is something that was Bitcoin largely written off for years and years. I mean, at the highest levels of finance, they called it a fraud. They called it rat poison. The fact that he's worried that if Bitcoin falters, it could drag the stock market down, it almost is surreal to me. Bitcoin is the future of finance. It is democratizing, it is decentralizing finance. As Bitcoin is viewed as maybe the tech leader, even though it's not a company, right? There's no board of directors. There is no central body behind Bitcoin. But to worry that a drop in Bitcoin would drag down the stock market, I don't really think that would be the case. But, he goes on to say, because I'm reading the article now that you're referencing, that he thinks there is a bubble in some areas of the market. And at the bottom, he says, particularly in the opaque cryptocurrency market and in some companies that are popular for one reason or the other, even though there are continuing earnings losses. So I think when he talks about bubbles and he's talking about companies, right, there are a bunch of companies that are losing money but that have seen their stock price go up significantly. So I don't disagree with him there. I mean, we're watching really crazy things unfold with like GameStop, for instance, and some of these other companies that in real life, they're not doing well, but the stocks have been bid up and bought up to levels that really they're not making sense relative to what the underlying business is doing. To call Bitcoin a bubble right now, a lot of people like to do that because of the exponential growth in value it's seen. And that's both in a dollar sense, but also the network value. The idea of Bitcoin being correlated to tech stocks, yeah, I see that. I mean, it is correlated. It hasn't been super high. Bitcoin has been relatively uncorrelated, but the bottom line is as more institutional players get into the Bitcoin market, then there is a greater tie to the traditional market because institutions, they get into markets in different ways, whether it's through different margin accounts, through collateral, and institutional players often have large books. And when there's shock waves that come through part of the market, it typically affects other parts of the market for different holders. So that makes sense to me, but I'm still trying to get around the idea that this guy's looking at Bitcoin as the bellwether. And I think as a Bitcoin holder and as a supporter of decentralized finance in general, this is one of the greatest compliments that a Bitcoiner could hear.
But what about those people who are right now seriously thinking of putting their corporation's money into Bitcoin and knowing that right after that $1.5 billion purchase, for instance, that Tesla made, Tesla shares dropped 8.6%. Is that, from the corporate point of view, is that not something which, especially if you're listed on the stock market, make you have to change your underwear?
Well, when you take on an asset in your portfolio or your treasury that has higher volatility, right? We call it realized volatility. When it moves more than other assets and you own a bunch of it, you better believe that your balance sheet's value is going to take on some of that elevated volatility, because they went from owning in their treasury just US dollars to then adding, at the time it was 8% of their treasury into Bitcoin. So yes, it presents volatility because Bitcoin is more volatile than the US dollar. So you can definitely expect volatility. I can tell you that these companies that are buying Bitcoin for their treasuries to hedge currency debasement risk of fiat or dollars and stuff, they're not doing it for the 1 month after they make the purchase. Okay, you have to look beyond the short-term swings here, because they're doing it for long-term risk management. It just needs to be understood. It's a long-term play. MicroStrategy, it's a long-term play. Now, the guy, Michael Saylor, who his average price on all his Bitcoin is way lower than just now, right? It's probably in the 20s. So, are some people saying, oh, this guy's a fool. He's doubled his money right now. Over doubled the $2 billion they put in is now worth $5 billion or whatever it is. He's a fool. He should be selling it. Yeah, maybe he should be selling some. I don't know. But he's not trading it like that. They're buying it to diversify their risk from US dollars. And it's in their minds going to do a great job over the long term of doing just that. And, I have a long-term belief in Bitcoin as well. If you follow the day-by-day, week-by-week movement and look at your balance, yeah, you could go crazy. I mean, this thing moves. It is volatile. And it's going to continue to be that way for a long time. So the bottom line is, these stories about, Tesla losing 10% and they made a mistake, it's very short-sighted. That's the type of media that's the world we live in, that it's all real time, and these stories do get clicks. So we're going to see a whole lot more of it. And these treasuries who bought Bitcoin, they've been riding a bull market here, and we've done nothing but go up. There's been blips of going lower, and you already see, boy, those stories were harsh. The critics come out after Bitcoin drops 20%. But where are those critics now that Bitcoin's on, it's close to making another all-time high? The stocks have bounced back, MicroStrategy and Tesla, and their moves of selling dollars and buying Bitcoin with it, very, very profitable at this point.
I get everything that you're saying, absolutely, with throwing money into another store of value, which is going to be a better overall risk and market than the US dollar or whatever currency. So I get that. Mark Mobius also believes that Bitcoin and gold are correlated because they're both considered to be stores of value. And what he said in another quote was, there's obviously some relationship between these two. And one of the reasons why gold is down, otherwise there's no good reason why gold should be down, because gold fell 0.3% and had fallen 7% overall in the last month, which when you overlay them, he is saying that there's a very, very easy to see correlation between those. So if Bitcoin has such an inextricable link between gold and stocks, it really does make Bitcoin the most powerful potion out there for moving pretty much the major markets or any kind of stocks or commodities, because if gold is going to be affected by Bitcoin, and gold is one of the strongest commodities and assets that people invest in, and he's already said this about stocks as well, I mean, everything else kind of pales in comparison. I mean, doesn't this really put Bitcoin at the apogee of everything that's worth investing in?
Well, I think we need to put it in perspective a little bit here. Bitcoin is still just a $1 trillion asset commodity. That's the network value. There will only be 21 million Bitcoin. Right now, there's less the 19 million out there. So you just do some quick math, and it's about what, $1.2 trillion of network value or market capitalization that makes up Bitcoin right now. And gold is several times that. Gold is over 10 trillion. Let's look at the stock market now. Multiple trillions of dollars of value in capitalization in the stock market. So we're still talking about really this Bitcoin being the dog that's wagging the tail idea. I think we have to take it with a grain of salt because this is still such a tiny representation of the overall market. So it just leads me to believe that the message behind this is more theory than actuality, because this $1 trillion cryptocurrency is not going to really take down these other markets that are many multiples of value greater than it. I think Bitcoin is going to gain multiples of value over time. So over time, do I think it will overtake gold's market cap? Yes, I do. Am I surprised that there is a very strong correlation between Bitcoin and gold? No, not at all. I mean, people refer to Bitcoin as digital gold. It has the algorithmic emission schedule of Bitcoin was modeled after gold. So it doesn't surprise me at all, but it makes sense that Bitcoin could be taking some of this disposable income out there that would normally find its way into buying gold or gold ETFs or paper that represents gold, and it heading into Bitcoin instead because people see it as digital gold and as kind of the next generation of gold that is better in many ways. It doesn't cost anything to store it. It doesn't cost much at all to move it. It doesn't cost anything. It's much easier to divide it up and send it to places. So, that correlation is very clear, and I think that will remain. But yeah, there's been a rotation. I think some money that was going to go into gold has gone into Bitcoin, and some people who own gold diversified and moved some of their gold holdings into Bitcoin. And I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense.
I was looking at a thread because I was really interested in what Mark Mobius was saying. And I was looking to see what people were saying about what they were investing in, and something caught my eye. And that is that in the United States, they have just passed another round of stimulus checks, which will be going out. And I got sidetracked as usual, and I started to then read threads about how people are taking their stimulus checks. And they're going to be throwing those stimulus checks into Bitcoin rather than putting them in the bank or whatever they should be doing with them. We should, if that is the case, we should see even a larger flurry of movement on the market, because I think I don't know. I mean, you would have to tell me here when those checks are hitting Americans' bank accounts, but there is a rise of talk that there's going to be a larger flow into the crypto movement, which could boost Bitcoin. Do you believe something like this, or do you still think we're still at that very 0 inception point on the Cartesian plane, where we're still it's still a very new concept to most people? And to be quite frank, most people out there in the world probably don't know still about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. But what do you think? Do you think that people are going to be making that move?
I think there's some that will be making that move. And I think that's a function of a lot more high-profile companies and individuals are coming out and showing their support for Bitcoin and saying, yeah, I own some. I bought some. I see the value proposition. I think it is the future of finance. That narrative, that story is being told by a lot more people in prominent positions. I think the last 6 months, it's just skyrocketed. So we're still in the situation where the the population is still significantly underexposed to Bitcoin, significantly. I think that people should own Bitcoin as a percentage of their portfolio. So there are many, many people who will be looking to get exposure to Bitcoin here because I don't think the narrative is getting any quieter. It's actually just gaining volume and gaining steam and gaining momentum. So we will see people buying some Bitcoin. I think that the idea of the stimulus checks going right into Bitcoin to me is kind of like a meme. I don't really take it literally like on a grand scale. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of people who are getting stimulus checks, they've been hurt by this pandemic and across the globe, many countries really, economies shut down, local economies, small businesses. People were really affected by this. Sure, there were some companies that did well because they were prepared and well suited for the new type of buying activity that would go on with people not leaving their houses and even restaurant takeout rather than eating in and all of that. But I think there were a lot of people who were hurt. So the idea that all this stimulus money is just kind of disposable income that people don't have, their bills to catch up on and rent and all of that, I think it's kind of a meme. But I absolutely believe there will be some money that flows into Bitcoin and crypto because the bottom line, most people are underexposed. They're going to catch up because I do think it still represents value relative to a lot of other assets out there.
I was actually thinking to myself, who's going to be the winner? Like, is Bitcoin always going to be the one? Is it always going to be the one out there? What would be the one to overtake it? And I was looking through CoinMarketCap. I was just, this is something I was doing with myself. And I was looking through CoinMarketCap and everything and thinking, oh yeah, maybe them, could be Ethereum. And then I thought, I'll bet you dollars for donuts that it's going to end up being the digital yuan. Because think about it. First of all, especially if they do a total replacement with their own currency, hard cash, yeah, it'll automatically make it the biggest cryptocurrency in the world and the most utilized, yeah?
But not really crypto. It's just a stable coin, and it's still backed by the central bank of China. So it's just a stable coin to me. It's like USDC or USDT, but it's backed by the central bank of China.
Yeah.
So it's not it's just a digital currency.
Absolutely.
Is it a crypto? No, it's not
even decentralized. Look, I'm leaving out the whole argument to do with blockchain. I am thinking about if I was to look at, and you even mentioned it yourself, and those two stable coins you mentioned, those are also on CoinMarketCap. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about any kind of cryptocurrency. Yeah. And I really do think that the digital yuan is going to end up one day, and I'm putting my stake in the ground on this one, it's going to end up giving Bitcoin a run. I think that's where it's going to really come full tilt. You need that mainstream, like we talked about many times, and we have this ongoing tug of war. Adoption is where the growth happens. This is where momentum starts and finishes. So if you're forcing a couple billion people to use a digital currency of whatever kind, I even think it would overtake the digital dollar, only because of, look, China's a massive country where if they did enforce this and it was mandatory, everybody would be using it. But don't forget, they have their Silk and Belt Road initiative. And so there's a lot of countries, because they're dependent on China, they can force them into using the digital yuan, which would just increase the footprint. And it could really have this entry like nobody's business from left field into the crypto markets. Now, is it a true decentralized cryptocurrency? Of course not. But this is the thing. There's the long game to be had here. And you and I both know this. Hence the reason why you love the HODL strategy, the hold on for dear life strategy, HODL folks. Rob is a HODL man. I'm a utility person. I'm utility woman. Rob is hodl man. And it'll be interesting to see at what point would Bitcoin then, like Mark Mobius said, would it somehow lose its footing? Bitcoin is definite improvement to many other investments that are out there, even with the volatility. I think you agree with me on that. But in the very long run, in the very long term, it's all well and good. You know, Kanye West is apparently going to put $100 million into Bitcoin. I read some other rap star, I can't remember his name, is going to put $150 million into it. But does it really, truly help with adoption when the people who are holding it are massive whales who are buying up huge stakes, and yet you've got their stimulus checks, you know, getting 1/100th of a Bitcoin? I mean, what do you think?
The bottom line here, like Bitcoin recently, it's climbing the ranks. You know, if you compare it to the other most valuable currencies out there, with maybe the U.S. being number one with the U.S. dollar, I think the euro is still number two. And then I think it's the Chinese yuan, which would be number three. The bottom line is these digital currencies, the central bank digital currencies, it's still fiat currency. It's still a sovereign currency. It's backed by those governments of those countries and the central banks there. They each serve different purposes. I think what Bitcoin represents is the alternative, and it's not backed by the central bank. It's got a lot of positive, you know, features that go along with that, but it also it doesn't have the backing of the kind of all-powerful central bank that can print money. So to me, there is a need for both, and I don't think sovereign currencies aren't going anywhere, but Bitcoin will. I do believe that the value of the network will grow to be, eventually, will it be the number one valued currency? It very well could, probably will, but that doesn't mean that, you know, the digital dollar and the digital euro and the digital yuan and all those are going to go away at all. They each serve a purpose, you know, both locally and globally. They're all going to coexist, but these central bank digital currencies are still just, they're sovereign currencies. They're central bank currencies.
But look at like the U.S. dollar, right? I mean, the U.S. dollar, based on that idea, I mean, the U.S. dollar is used. You go to Afghanistan, I can tell you right now, I can't even remember the name of their currency, but they want you to pay in U.S. dollars. There's hundreds of countries around the world that use the U.S. dollar as their de facto currency, fiat currency, even in that nation. You know, and I think it'll be hard in the future. Think about this, right? There's two things going on here. One of them, which is utility, and one of them, which is investment, right? And in terms of, and then of course you can have that in a Venn diagram, you have that overlap, right? But something's going to have to come out a winner. And you've got China railing against it. You've got India, who are also railing against Bitcoin. Basically, India has already said they're not looking to embrace Bitcoin anytime soon. They're looking at coming out with their own digital currency, which again, you know, is akin to issuing another fiat currency. Of course, it's just being replaced by something that's digital and easier to track and all those things that, you know, even with a digital dollar, the government would do. I mean, but it's the same thing in terms of tracking mechanisms. That's what central governments can do. They can obviously track things a lot better, which is obviously a bad thing. Yeah. But we won't get into that topic right now because that's a different podcast. But CBDC or otherwise, anything listed on CoinMarketCap, do you see Bitcoin really retaining its number one slot?
Bitcoin is going to have whether it's number one or whether it's a top 5, top 10 slot, when we're talking about what is Bitcoin used for, right? You talked a little bit about Rob's a hodler. You like the transactional stuff. Mm-hmm. Is Bitcoin the thing that you want to be spending? I think there could be other coins that you would be spending on a daily basis. It could end up being USDC if you're in the US, or an actual US digital dollar. But the bottom line is Bitcoin is more than just, the digital cash, right? It's growing into this trusted store of value with mathematically driven emission, with a monetary policy that is in code, and it's not set by humans and politicians who could be swayed, for political reasons and emotional reasons. So people can understand it, right? It's black and white. Bitcoin to me will be a leader. It's not to say that there won't be other currencies that show up that are used more frequently transactionally or day to day. I mean, look at Ethereum, some people call like the internet of money, where, it's used to power all these applications. Some people, they think that has more utility than Bitcoin because it's used so much more in DeFi and all these other Ethereum-based applications. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we see even more innovation in other coins and other networks that pop up. But I do think that Bitcoin itself will continue to be a true leader and be one of the most valuable decentralized networks that exist.
Okay, I love Ethereum. I'm a huge Ethereum fan. I still remember when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about Ethereum, though, is that it's so goddamn slow. Talking about today, at this moment in time, there's no way that in terms of global utility that could become the de facto coin of transactional choice. It really does choke up the network. I mean, if too many people are using it. Going back to the comment that you made, though, about trustlessness, this whole idea of trust, which binds Bitcoin. When you have humongous whales buying humongous rafts of Bitcoin, knowing that they can easily move the market, do you think it will be as trusted as originally dreamed of?
Do you think that there are enormous whales in the US dollar market or the Chinese yuan market or the euro market?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are. I mean, there's whales in the sea, and in every body of water there are dominant players. I think it's just kind of evolution. So what I think we're seeing happen is actually the holder base is getting diversified now. We are getting more players in. I think that the weight of these whales is going to get diluted somewhat as more and more dolphins enter and bigger fish become dolphins and
tadpoles.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of whales getting onto BitMEX, like derivatives exchanges, and all of a sudden we see 30% corrections or moves in Bitcoin because of one kind of aggressive player who's really trying to shake the tree. It's decreasing as we move up in price and as we broaden the investor scope of real players here. So there's whales in every market, and whales, they make big waves. I mean, there's no question. When a big holder of anything decides to make a move, you better really pay close attention. You can't move that much size without shaking things up. So big players like, if Michael Saylor right now came out and said, we sold half our Bitcoin position because we got the move we looked for and we needed to lighten up, people would be scratching their heads and it would cause a ripple effect. We'd see a sell-off, and rightfully so. I mean, this is a guy he's a whale in there right now. So you see a whale leave and you're wondering, what does he know that I don't know? So we're going to see big holders affect pricement. But the bottom line is, as the value grows, right, we're at over $1 trillion here. Mm-hmm. It takes bigger and bigger whales to move a market when you get to $1 trillion, $2 trillion, $5 trillion. And I feel less at risk of some rogue moves by whales, and especially if we're thinking that these moves are nefarious or kind of attacks on the network. I'm less concerned of that now than I was a year ago and 2 years ago, that's for sure. There's a lot of weight at the top. 10% of the people own 80% of the value, or like the Pareto principle. I think it exists in most places, and the bottom line is, as those networks grow, the influence of the whales should get watered down. And I think we are seeing it, and I think we will continue to see it as we see more growth. But those were real major concerns for years. I mean, the SEC still said that those big holders, it wasn't in enough hands, not diversified enough, too concentrated at the top. Those are things that people were concerned about. I do think that those concerns are being alleviated as this network grows, and that's what we need to see happen.
I saw something in the news, and I thought of you right away. And the minute I saw this piece, I thought, oh my God, this is Rob. Your best friend, Peter Schiff, has a son. Now, Peter Schiff, for everyone, but what happened was the son of Peter Schiff has moved 100% of his portfolio into cryptocurrency. And what's even more interesting is that Peter Schiff himself is the one who tweeted out that his son, Spencer Schiff, went all in on Bitcoin on the last drop below 50K, and 100% of his portfolio is now in Bitcoin. And he then went on to call his son brainwashed. And he said that his son sold the last of his silver stocks to also raise cash for it. And he said that he's hodling to infinity or bust. So I thought that the minute I read this, I thought, okay, you may not like one Schiff, but you like the other. You definitely got one Schiff as a friend. What did you think about that piece?
That's funny. I loved seeing that tweet. And I've gone very close to just muting Peter Schiff because of the engagement he gets from the crypto Twitter folks. Like, every single tweet of his shows up in my Twitter feed, and I don't even follow him. So there's an ulterior motive here. He's using his bashing of Bitcoin to try to, get more visibility and to try to gain notoriety. And he's been so dead wrong about Bitcoin, and he's been knocking it and talking badly about it since it was like $300. I mean, think about that. You're supposed to be at the, you call yourself a top investment manager, and you're a gold bug, and you see something that comes out, and because you're so closed-minded and so into your gold and silver and precious metals and whatever it is, that you see something, a digital version of gold, you see new technology, innovation, and you're so closed-minded that you bash it from $300, and now it's gone up literally exponentially. You've cost not only your followers who probably have the same mindset as a lot of Bitcoins. They see the value in this asset like gold, and they would see the value in Bitcoin as well, but he's cost his followers millions of dollars. It's really an absolute shame. Terrible. And then on a day when Bitcoin is down by 10%, he's out there tweeting more than ever. It's insane. It's insane to think that this guy's been theoretically short Bitcoin since it was like $300, and now we're looking at we're a pitching wedge away from 60,000. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Well, I thought we would end on a very happy note, which is Coinbase's $90 billion US dollar valuation. And Crypto Exchange is set to go public in March on NASDAQ under the ticker Coin. And it's, I think for you, probably another slice of heaven, is it?
I love it. In the U.S., Coinbase is definitely, they were the leader in, the U.S. dollar on-ramp into crypto. They nailed it first. They got massive market share. There's still a lot of things about Coinbase as the platform that I don't like. I had a call from a friend who he had wired some funds to Coinbase. It wouldn't let him use those funds for like 2 or 3 days. Then finally he was able to buy Bitcoin this morning, and he wanted to move the Bitcoin. And then it said he couldn't move the Bitcoin. He had to wait 3 to 5 more days. I had to sit there and kind of make excuses for Coinbase. And all I said was, it's just a terrible user experience. I'm sorry. Like, buy Bitcoin on Coinbase and you can't move it for three to 5 days. Coinbase does tremendous amount of business, and they're doing it kind of in like the most retail. They're just charging fees. It is transaction fees, and they are collecting big fees. And there's certain things about the user experience with Coinbase that I think needs to be changed, but I don't think they're going to make any changes to it anytime soon. But the bottom line is they had a big enough moat here in the U.S. where they could take in U.S. dollars from your bank account and let you get into Bitcoin the easiest, to where they're the leader. I love seeing it be worth $100 billion and being like one of the top IPOs or stock listings. What it does is, okay, we know the numbers of Coinbase. We know what they're doing. Now we kind of have a way to value other stuff. And that other stuff is worth more than the market was pricing. So it is very positive for the space in general. And I love to see that win for Bitcoin and crypto.
For me, it's a win because they're actually going onto NASDAQ. That actually gets this whole space more eyes on the prize. More people are actually looking and wondering what's going on in this whole crypto space, the whole crypto sphere. It actually brings a presence.
Yeah, it's like you make a great point. It means that if people want exposure, it's another vehicle to get exposure to the overall like crypto beta, Bitcoin beta.
Absolutely.
Right? If Bitcoin goes to 100,000 and you own Coinbase stock, you got to think that Coinbase stock is going to go higher as the overall value of the crypto network in general is growing. So it's another vehicle to get exposure. And so now people don't have to go buy MicroStrategy stock as their proxy ETF. They can go buy a little bit of Coinbase. They can buy some Tesla, some MicroStrategy. Who needs a Bitcoin ETF?
Well, I agree with everything you just said, but I am going to say one thing. I agree with you also on those negatives. Now, you see, when my friends, I tell them to stay the hell away from Coinbase. I have so many problems with them.
Yeah.
They go down all the time, suffering outages, even during price rallies. I mean, Coinbase doesn't even give a crap about trying to do better because they're making fistfuls of money by giving crappy service. When my friends are calling me, I give them 1,000 alternatives.
Yeah.
But I do tell them to stay away from Coinbase.
Absolutely.
So that we've just done a whole roundup. How do you feel?
Yeah. No, that was good. We covered there's a lot of good news, right? I mean,
there is.
It's just, and a lot of it is what we were hoping for. It's that real adoption, and not only institutional, but it's just, it's broad-based, and it's happening. That's great to see. It's always great to see the numbers going up and the values increasing and the networks growing. But, the bottom line is a lot of great news, a lot of great things happening. It's, I don't think it's going to be stopping anytime soon, which I think is the best part of it all.
No, I agree with you. And I also think that any of these banks, to be completely honest with you, who are even silly enough to think that they're going to somehow trounce on this crypto party, they have no idea how wrong they're going to be. And they are going to see the meteor of crypto blow them out of the water. So, it is one of these things of watch this space. I want to thank you, Rob, again for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
My pleasure. Anytime. I love these conversations. So.
And I do too. I just hope that everyone who's been listening also feels the same way, that you've learned something new. Please remember to tell your friends and family to download us on one of the podcasting platforms which are listed on cryptoandblockchaintalk.com. On there, the full and comprehensive list of every single podcasting platform that streams us, which includes iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. And also, we are just about to cross the 100,000 unique listeners mark. So I'm really, really excited. And when we do that, we're going to have some kind of special party. I don't know what kind, but we're going to have a party on here. And Rob, you're invited.
Oh,
so
that's great.
I know, I'm really, really excited. And on top of that, of course, you know that these podcasts are streamed on our sister radio station, Crypto 24 Radio. Crypto 24 Radio plays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week around the world for news, music, and lots more stuff about this space. Not only that, you can talk to us through our social media channels of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, but we love to hear from you directly. So please email us at education@savvydigital.com. That's education@savvy, SAVII digital.com. On top of that, we also have a lot of really great things coming up in the future, and we know that you have a huge amount of choice when it comes to what you listen to in terms of your podcast choices. Thank you for choosing us. So please be safe. Take care, and goodbye for now.